Some crystal balls to some trending projections for some players for the Florida Gators on three. Threw out a little feeler on who they felt was coming to Florida. The Georgia Bulldogs just landed the number one, a top 5 tight end in the 2024 class today. And Amir Jackson, according to his on 3 projections, were leaning between Georgia and Florida. So that noise really picked up for us landing a 4-star tight end, which we would love to have. I think we've lacked. Always Bordenham shows a lot of promising sight, but we need to get back to having some studs on the tight end side. So he's one. Zay Mincy's another one, and TJ Moore. So we're gonna pass it over to you guys, kind of get your thoughts and opinions, and kind of who out of these 3 are your favorite to land and must get for this coming year. Dave, you can go first.
No. Please go ahead. It's your show.
Our must gets for this year. I would say Dylan Evans. I would put him down there.
Texas A&M.
Texas A&M. We need that. We need a tight end. So I would say, what his name's on the tip of my tongue. Well,
Amir Jackson was
Amir Jackson. That's it.
Amir
Jackson.
Walter Matthews.
Yeah, Walter Matthews, and I would rather have Amir Jackson, but that's just me. We need a tight end, and then, guys, I guess you're pretty good on safety. We need offensive linemen. So I would say, God, there's so many of them out there right now, and it's still so early. So just give me an offensive lineman.
Anybody,
any
please.
offensive lineman, just anyone, just grab one.
There's so many of them. I mean, there really is right now. So
Connor?
I would say offensive line, then tight end, and then yes, Evans.
Yeah. Must gets. Defensive line, I would say you have to get a nose tackle in this class. DeAndre Robinson out of my hometown of Orlando, Florida. Somebody that I think you have to land. Either him or what is that other guy's name? This is terrible podcasting. I know this kid.
David Stone?
Scheduled. Nasir Johnson. Nasir Johnson or DeAndre Robinson, both of which I think can play the nose.
Nasir's set to visit FSU later this week. We're going to talk about later on the show, and he's kind of between the two schools right now.
He does have an official visit locked in with Florida in a couple weeks as well. But they're 2 that I think you have to land at least one of them. I do like your Dalen Evans statement, Dave. I think that kid's a stud, and I think you can't stop adding guys in the trenches in a line of scrimmage league like the SEC. And then just offensive line. Yeah, I mean, I think your biggest need in this class is big-time offensive linemen. You've got a chance to land a couple on their visits over the next couple weeks that I know you said we'll get into a little bit later. But you've got multiple blue-chip offensive linemen that are going to be on campus over the next couple weeks. You have to close on some of them.
And what are your thoughts? What's this you said earlier, with their smoke, their fire, with the smoke on the guys that were being crystal balled? Have you heard much with those, with the Amar Jacksons, the Zay Mincy's, the TJ Moore?
Yeah, so Amir Jackson, I think the smoke there, or the crystal ball predictions, or whatever came in today, is just a matter of, one, Florida being in a good spot prior to Georgia landing Jaden Riddell. And now Georgia has landed dogs. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Now Georgia has landed 2 tight ends, I think, in the last 2 or 3 days. So I think it's a matter of just that class filling up before Amir Jackson made his decision. So it kind of defaults to Florida. Not that he's choosing Florida because he can't go to Georgia. I think Florida has really done a great job recruiting him. They were one of the first big-time schools to offer him. It was Florida, then Georgia shortly after, and he's picked up a lot more since then. I think Florida stands to be in a great spot with him, and I know they want 2 tight ends in this class. So I think Amir Jackson's going to be one of them.
And
go ahead. No, go ahead. Sorry. No,
how do you think Callaway's done so far since stepping in? Have you had much with him and being the tight end
I've
coach?
heard a lot of great feedback on Callaway. Tight end position's not really a sexy position to begin with.
Sure.
But I've heard a lot of really good feedback. I know the guys at UF really like him. They were really happy when he got the job as tight ends coach. And From what I've seen thus far, on the recruiting trail, though tight end's not a really big-time position that's talked about, he's made headway with guys like Amir Jackson, guys like Walter Matthews, guys like Eric Canner. So he's got a couple of guys that are going to be on campus in the next couple weeks, and he's going to try to close the class with 2 of them.
I love it. And anything on Zay Mincy, obviously another safety to the class with Xavier Filsamy and then TJ Moore. Wide receivers, we have one finally. I felt like we've been a little behind the ball with just the noise, right? There's been a ton of noise, and I feel like we haven't closed the door. Same thing with offensive linemen. What are your thoughts on those two guys?
Yeah, so Zay Mincy is a fantastic player, man. I actually think they like him at cornerback more than I think they like him at safety. He plays boundary corner at the high school level. Really good length, really good size, and somebody that I think Florida has a great shot at. There's 3 players at Mainland that Florida has offered. Obviously, his teammates are L.J. McCray, which is a big time defensive line target for the Gators, and then newest defense, or one of the newer defensive back offers. I think his name is pronounced Isaiah Shine. Just a recent offer by Corey Raymond. So 3 guys at that school that all have offers. Zay Mincy and L.J. McCray obviously being the 2 big ones that I think Florida's in a good spot for with both of them. And then TJ Moore is one of my favorite wide receivers in this class. I pounded the table about Isaiah Williams for quite a while before he committed to Florida. I've kind of done the same about TJ Moore. TJ Moore is somebody that was a 3-star just before Florida offered him. I watched his film and I was like, man, this kid is a stud. He's in Tampa. Florida needs to go all in. Shortly after that, I don't know if they listened to the podcast or whatever I was doing, but hey, they offered him about a week later. It's clearly I'm clearly the reason he got offered.
Billy's a big fan of the show. Big fan.
Yeah, but yeah, the kid's an absolute stud, man. And Florida has done a really good job of recruiting him. He visits Clemson this upcoming weekend. June 2nd this upcoming weekend or the weekend after? Sorry, weekend after.
Yeah, it's June 2nd.
Yeah, so he visits Clemson on June 2nd. If Florida can weather that storm, because I know Clemson is the other school at the top of his list, if they can weather that storm and get him on campus June 9th, I really like where Florida stands in that recruitment.
I love it. I love hearing the Zay Mincy, too, because with it being a 4-star safety, we have 2 safeties committed so far. But if the recruit him as a cornerback, that kind of changes the game, regardless of what On3 and 247 has him slated as. If they all see themselves having a home, that's what's important. Because, again, the big question mark is like, hey, do we keep all these guys? Is someone going to want to leave when we land them? Well, if they understand where they're going to be playing, regardless of what the recruiting sites are saying, then it kind of puts things to rest a little bit. So it was refreshing hearing that because I hadn't heard that.